Okay, I'm here with Steve, the founder of this pro-EU, anti-Brexit protest. Why do you support the UK staying members of the EU?
Okay, well, I remember the early 70s. I remember we weren't in a good place as a nation. The power cuts, the strikes and things like that. And we have been much better off since joining the EEC originally in 1973. Through the 80s, things improved. Through the 90s, even better. 2000, up until the world recession. Everything was pretty good.
The EU is a peace project. It is part and integral to the Good Friday Agreement to maintain peace in Ireland. All the stuff about trade over the border, I'm sure that can be resolved sooner or later.
My father said that he supported the idea of joining the Euro if we actually rejoined the European Union. I didn't leave.
Right.
That would be an interesting thing, because maybe we could have a big say in the Euro. Maybe if we joined the Euro, we could roll back the austerity, we could bring some rationality to this.
Would you go with that? Would you say if we go back into the EU, we stay in the EU, you'd want to support the Euro specifically?
I mean, I'm happy to stay with the pound. I'm a numismatist. So to me, money is historic too. So you're asking the wrong person that question. I'm going to be biased towards the pound simply because I'm a numismatist.
Interesting. Okay. A lot of Brexiteers would argue, okay, well, maybe the EU hasn't damaged the UK economically at all, but it's been actually quite extremely damaging towards Greece and actually rather damaging to the southern European economies. What would be your response to that argument?
Well, the 2008 crash and economic problems were worldwide. Greece had some difficult policies that didn't end up well, and where there's politics and economics and policies all muddled up in some of these countries, well, you end up in a sad state. However, since that nadir, that low point, Spain has picked itself up. It's now one of the fastest growing nations, and in fact even Greece is doing better.
Well, you have got a point. I mean, that's the interesting thing, actually. I actually have a friend who lives in Spain. And Spain's a place that has a huge amount of youth unemployment, like I was just talking to you off camera about. It's very hard for young people, even if they come out of university in Spain. A lot of them have to come to places like this, to be honest, and be your colleagues, as it were. And they'd rather not do so, obviously. They'd rather stay at home and work there.
The EU is not perfect. No one has ever said it is perfect. There is no system in the world anywhere that is perfect. But what you do, you work on it. And whilst you have a seat at the table, you can mould it and put things right.
We need to reform Europe, because certainly it's a case that the countries that matter the most are the countries that are in Northern Europe.
It's a nightmare for us, Brexit. People were lied to, people were cheated. I just feel like socially we've all been conned.
350 million was supposed for the NHS. Well, we know that's a lie, but that was what we were supposed to be giving to the EU each week, I think.
George Osborne with Project Fear that said we'd go straight into recession just because we had a vote. Presumably you'd at least agree that the Remain side were telling big porkies as well.
I totally agree with you there, yes.
Those who support leaving the EU, they say, well, firstly, the EU itself isn't very democratic because we can't vote out those who have the most power in the EU. And that secondly, if we're trying to overturn the result of a referendum so soon after having it, that isn't democratic either. So what would you say to those 2 points?
Well, I would say, look what happened in Ireland, the Lisbon Treaty. It was rejected by 2/3 to 1/3. 15 months later, it was accepted 2/3 to 1/3. People could digest things were explained. Our referendum was 6 weeks. People did not, I'm not saying people are stupid, I'm saying people did not fully understand the implications and what the EU actually stood for and does. It has unelected members, so do we. There's the House of Lords behind us. And they have acted in our interests in a lot of ways through this Brexit transition, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's nonsense, because we actually vote for MEPs.
I don't think either side is actually anti-democracy. We're all pro-democracy, because democracy is basically, as far as it seems to me, basically you have the right to disagree with the majority. And basically the majority want to leave, I acknowledge that by all means. But I don't feel I have to agree. I don't feel they really want me to agree, because that would be a sad thing if we all disagreed. Life would be quite boring in general in every way. I guess I sort of feel like this is happening, they've triggered Article 50, We might be out here, but we can't really stop it. We can't really do anything to actually stop them doing the process. And they seem to be doing it as all the Brexiters want, in all honesty.
Well, if a vote of any kind is democratic, then there is nothing to be afraid of. The EU is actually more democratic. At every stage, the EU is either members of the EU are voted in. It isn't that our civil servants are actually appointed by the government. The EU civil servants are actually voted in and appointed by their members. It's at every stage.
We had a referendum in 1975. I don't mean to be pedantic at all, but of course the country has changed its mind on Europe. We might change our mind again and decide to go back in, or the third option, I don't know, whatever's going on then.